temperatures are rising across Europe, causing wildfires and predictions of the hotter days ahead. France and Spain have been the hardest hit, leaving firefighters exhausted as they battle fire after fire and assist with evacuations.
The wildfires are still raging through western France, forcing more than 1,500 people to evacuate the area as firefighters battle to bring the flames under control. There were 10,500 hectares on fire in the Gironde region today, up from 7,300 hectares on Friday, July 15th, as 1,200 firefighters were working to put the fires out. France's Environment Junior Minister, Bérangère Couillard, says the country is dealing with very considerable drought due to insufficient rainfalls over the winter and spring, especially dry months of May, and now coupled with particularly high temperatures. Dozens of wildfires also raged in Spain, cutting off roads and forcing thousands of people to be evacuated from their homes, as blistering summer temperatures showed no signs of abating. A new blaze broke out on Saturday, July 16, in the Jerti Valley in Extremadura, which has been the focal point of the most difficult fires this week. Firefighters battled the wildfires throughout the night, and helicopters dropped water onto the flames on Sunday. Over in Britain, people flocked to the coastal town of Bournemouth this Sunday to enjoy the sunny weather as the country braced for the hottest day on record. Sun lovers packed the beach, playing in the water and taking in the sun's rays ahead of a predicted record high temperature for Monday. On Friday, weather forecasters issued the first ever extreme heat warning, saying that parts of England on Monday and Tuesday could see temperatures reach 40 degrees Celsius, topping the previous record of 38.7 degrees Celsius in 2019. Finally, in Italy, firefighters, sparked by the worst drought in 70 years and by extreme heat waves, are raging through the peninsula. A fire broke out on Friday in a cornfield between a beach and a pine forest in Bibbione, in the municipality of San Michele al Tagliamento, on the border between Veneto and Friuli regions. The country is experiencing extreme drought conditions that are spreading through the country, with rivers and reservoirs drying up.
And over in London, temperatures soared as the country braced itself for its potentially hottest day on record. A thermometer reading in Trafalgar Square showed temperatures reaching 35 degrees Celsius at around 1:30 GMT. Weather experts have forecast temperatures to hit 40 degrees Celsius for the first time, forcing train companies to cancel services and some schools to close, while ministers urge the public to stay at home. Trying to keep cool, passers-by dip their hands in the fountain pools of Trafalgar Square to seek respite from the hot weather. One man poured water from the pool over his dog to cool him down.
It's very hot outside. I think staying in the shade is the best option you've got, and just keep hydrating yourself. Sunscreen obviously as well, but yeah, it's ridiculous how hot the weather's getting in Europe in general, I think.
Well, you walk from shadow to shadow, so anywhere that you have to stay in the sun for a long time, that's off limits. So we'll have to deal with sticking in places like we are now, as opposed to walking next to the Thames or any places like that.
Meanwhile, the EU says it is monitoring those wildfires raging in southern member states very closely and sending a firefighting plane to Slovenia over the weekend, adding to recent deployments to France and Portugal. The EU Commission spokesperson Blazes Ujvari told a briefing earlier today it would continue to monitor and provide support where needed.
The Commission continues to work tirelessly to mobilize help to those in need. Now, in addition to the firefighting airplanes mobilized to Portugal, France and Albania last week, the Commission deployed another plane from Croatia to Slovenia over the weekend to battle a fire in Nova Gorica. The Commission also provided rapid satellite images to France in the context of an ongoing fire in the southwest of the country using the Copernicus satellite system. This comes, of course, on top of the 2 firefighting aircraft that were deployed last week from the rescue fleet. We continue, of course, to monitor the situation during this unprecedented heatwave, and we will continue to mobilize support as needed.
Joining me now is Abiola Odeyinka. She's a medical doctor at a hospital in the United Kingdom. She joins me now virtually. Dr. Odeyinka, thank you for joining me today. How hot has it been today alone?
Presently, I'm based in Stoke-on-Trent, which is in the West Midlands area of England. Temperatures are about 30 degrees. In London, it's about 36 degrees at the moment. Yeah.
Is this any different from previous years?
Yes, I would say that the highest was in 2019. It was almost about 36 degrees in July as well. So we're just hitting that same temperature mark, if I would say, yeah.
And with what, you've been experiencing in cities in the UK, have there been more patients in hospital as a result of the heat wave?
Yes, mostly elderly patients from care homes and nursing homes. They have been coming in with dehydration because that is a major medical condition that affects the elderly patients. Patients have been really dry, so we have been rehydrating them properly by giving them IV fluids through their veins just to rehydrate them properly. Yeah.
So what is the advice? More people will need to drink lots of water to keep cool. Is it advisable to just drink water or drink water with electrolytes?
It will be advisable to drink water, preferably cold water, just because it cools down the body temperature. Just driving back home, there was really no fresh air. The air feels steamy and hot and humid, like you're like in the desert. So it would be preferable to drink cold water. Avoid sitting in direct sunlight to prevent heat strokes. I think that's the advice we're giving patients. Some people have been walking around without any outer clothing just to sort of prevent that, excessive heat. Yeah.
So, and, also with people, trying to keep cool, they would also drinking cold water. So fridges, freezers should be on. Air conditioning will also be on. That's also increased utility bills for the companies, right? And for families.
Yes, it is, but there's nothing we can do. On the flip side, it's helping because people recognizing the effects of climate change and how to avoid using excessive water. But there's nothing we can do because it's a catch-22 situation. If you don't drink enough water, you will get dehydrated and you might come down with something worse. So yes, more electricity bills, but I think health is it's better to be safe than sorry. Indeed. So that's the advice.
Also, yeah. Dr. Odeyinka, there are other diseases the UK is battling with. That also includes the increased COVID-19 cases. So what is the advice for those coming in, also for healthcare professionals like yourself?
Yes, the major advice is like universities have done something really good by stopping lectures today and tomorrow, just to prevent this overcrowding in tight spaces, because we know that it's community spread, person-to-person contact. So just avoid staying in enclosed places with people, because when the weather is hot, you can't really maintain that much personal distance as you would prefer. It's better to stay outdoors, but not in the direct sunlight. Just stay under a shade, and so the risk is the risk of community spread of COVID-19, but I think the government is really keeping a close eye on it, and they're advising people, and people are really taking to the advice, and universities and schools as well have not allowed students to come to school today, so which is really commendable. Yeah.
And let's move over to talking about Spain and France. They've been experiencing terrible wildfires. What have you been hearing as regards whether or not the situation is improving there? And if there are cases like that you've also come across?
In the UK, we haven't come across any wildfires as of yet, thank God. But in Spain, they've been having forest fires, spontaneous forest fires, which the firefighters have been battling to stop these fires, and they're really working really hard. And what the hospitals have been doing is by conducting safety fire alarm drills. We had one in my hospital today, so we conducted a safety fire alarm drill just to make people aware that there is a risk of a fire, and just to know how people know where the exit points are. So far so good. We haven't had any in the UK, but in France and England and Spain, they have still been combating this, and I still think they're on top of it, although they're still working really hard as of now. Yeah.
And Dr. Denker, still talking about, you know, the heat wave. It's also a delicate situation for pregnant women and, of course, nursing mothers, babies, especially at this point. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. The major risk is dehydration. People don't realize how bad dehydration can get, because you can get excessively, dehydrated, and could lead to low blood pressure and collapse. Obviously, when there's low blood pressure, it affects the blood flow from the mother to the fetus in the womb, and that could lead to complications such as, preterm labor and things like that. So yeah, those are the major advice we are giving patients. We are giving people who come to hospital, because we see all kinds of people come to hospital, apart from the elderly. The pregnant women, children and elderly, they are the most vulnerable. So those are the people we advise to drink lots of water. And if you don't have to be outside, it's better you stay indoors, really.
Thank you. Viola Odenka is a medical practitioner with the NHS hospital in the UK. Thanks so much, and do take care.
Thank you.
Returning to some bilateral relations stories, France President Emmanuel Macron today welcomed the UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, MBZ, in Paris, marking the leader's first overseas state visit since taking over from his half-brother in May, and the first by a UAE leader since 1991. France and the United Arab Emirates are set to sign an accord whereby the UAE will guarantee diesel supplies to France. This is coming from a source in the French presidency. France and other European countries are looking to diversify their sources of energy in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which has seen Russia cut gas supplies to Europe. The two countries are also slated to agree on a global strategic energy partnership to identify common projects in sectors such as hydrogen, renewable and nuclear energy in their respective countries and elsewhere. Macron has forged a good relationship with MBZ, with investments flowing between both countries, most recently with France, sealing its largest ever overseas sale of the Rafale warplane. Over in India, at least 12 people were killed after the bus fell off a bridge into a river in India's central Dar district today. Around 55 passengers were traveling from central Indore to the western city of Pune when the vehicle reportedly lost control due to brake or steering failure, plunged into the Narmada River. Rescue workers pulled survivors and bodies from the badly damaged bus. Madhya Pradesh Interior Minister Narottam Mishra said 15 people were rescued. India's roads are among the world's deadliest, the result of untrained drivers, inadequate law enforcement, badly maintained highways and cars that fail modern crash tests. Malaysian authorities have seized nearly $18 million worth of trafficked wildlife contraband, including elephant tusks, rhinoceros horns, pangolin scales and tiger bones, the largest such seizure on record. Customs Director General Zazuli Johan said customs officials discovered the contraband, which included 6,000 kilograms of elephant tusks inside 3 shipping containers deemed high risk at the west port of Selangor State on July 10. The containers are believed to have come from Africa. The tusks, including other wildlife contraband, are valued at more than 80 million ringgit. That's about $17.9 million. Malaysia has been singled out by conservationists as a major transit point for the illegal trafficking of endangered wildlife to other Asian countries. And those protests in Sri Lanka are not dying down anytime soon, as dozens of members of the country's trade unions protest outside the capital, Colombo's main railway terminal, demanding acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe resign. The protesters gathered despite his declaration of a state of emergency on Sunday, July 17, in an effort to head off unrest ahead of Wednesday's parliament vote to elect a new president. The specific legal provisions of the emergency are yet to be announced by the government. Wickremesinghe, who is also Prime Minister, was sworn in July 15 as acting president. The country's beleaguered leaders have imposed a state of emergency several times since April, when public protests took hold against the government's handling of a deepening economic crisis and a persistent shortage of essentials. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa himself is currently in Singapore, having fled when thousands of anti-government protesters came out onto the streets, occupied his official residence and his office. Well, despite the political crisis in Sri Lanka, citizens will go to the polls this Wednesday to vote in a new president. One of the contestants is senior lawmaker from the ruling Podujana Paramuna SLPP, Julius Alahapruma. The 63-year-old former journalist is vying with six-time Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and opposition leader Sajith Premadasa to become Sri Lanka's next president after the incumbent Rajapaksa fled the country last week. Alahapruma, who entered parliament in 1994, served as the Minister of Mass Media and a cabinet spokesperson, but resigned in April when President Rajapaksa dissolved the cabinet after protesters surrounded his private residence. The ruling party has about 117 votes that could be used to field a candidate like Alahapruma and get him across the line. Well, staying with Sri Lanka, also in the race is six-time Prime Minister, the leader of the main opposition party, and a journalist turned politician from the ruling party, 55-year-old Sajith Premadasa. Leader of the main opposition, Samagi Jani Belawagaya, SJB party, is a contender in the fray, but with only around 50 lawmakers in parliament, he will need to build bipartisan support to stand a chance. Premadasa studied at the London School of Economics and entered politics after his father, President Rana Singh Premadasa, was assassinated in a suicide bombing in 1993. He entered parliament in 2000, later serving as Sri Lanka's Deputy Health Minister. In 2018, he was appointed Minister of Housing, Construction and also Cultural Affairs. He is popular among the rural poor for championing efforts to build more houses and campaigning to eradicate poverty, improve housing under the slogan of Shelter for All at 2025 as Housing Minister from 2015 to 2019. He ran as presidential candidate in the 2019 election, ultimately losing to President Rajapaksa. So all eyes are all out for Wednesday during that vote in Sri Lanka, where Steve Bannon, the former aide to Donald Trump, arrived at court in Washington, D.C. today ahead of his contempt trial on charges that he defied a congressional subpoena from the committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters. Bannon is facing 2 misdemeanor counts of contempt of Congress after he declined to provide testimony or documents to the House of Representatives committee. Bannon had unsuccessfully tried to persuade U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols to delay his trial, arguing that the committee's high-profile televised hearings could make it harder for him to have a fair and impartial jury. The committee presented evidence in a televised hearing last week that Bannon spoke with Trump at least twice, January 5th, the day before the Capitol attack. The committee also played a clip of Bannon saying all hell is going to break loose tomorrow. On a right-wing talk show that day, he made those comments after his first call with Trump, and this is from the committee. Nichols has ruled that Bannon cannot use executive privilege as a defense in his case, and he also cannot claim he relied on his attorney's advice when he declined to testify or provide records. A gunman killed 3 people when he opened fire in the food court of a shopping mall outside Indianapolis on Sunday before a bystander fatally shot the assailant. According to media reports, 2 other people were injured in the incident, which took place in the early evening at the Greenwood Park Mall. The paper reported that police believe a bystander who also had a weapon saw the shooting and opened fire on the gunman. The shooter was alone and had a rifle and several magazines of ammunition, according to the newspaper. Police did not release the names of the victims, the gunman or the bystander.
What we do know right now is that we have what appears to be one shooter. Looks to be an adult male. We have not identified him yet. We do not have a motive yet. It appears that he had a rifle with several magazines of ammunition, entered the food court and began shooting. We have 5 victims. 4 have been confirmed deceased, and 2 are at Eskenazi Hospital with wounds, and we do not have an update on their condition at this time. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Back here in Africa, in Somalia, a Juba Airways plane crashed and flipped over during landing at Aden Adi Airport in the country's capital, Mogadishu. However, authorities say all 30 passengers and crew on board have been rescued alive. Pictures near the airport in Mogadishu shows thick black smoke rising above the crash site. Firefighters doused the flames, and pictures from the scene show the plane upside down. The cause of the crash is not yet clear. In a few weeks after its closure, Sudan has reopened a key border crossing with Ethiopia that it closed last month after accusing Ethiopia of executing 7 of its soldiers. A statement by the Technical Committee of Sudan's Defense and Security Council said the decision was taken after Sudan and Ethiopia's leaders agreed to solve the problems that erupt at the border areas of the 2 countries, and in return for the goodwill measures shown by the Ethiopian side to prevent the infiltration of armed elements into Sudanese territory. The council adds that Sudanese security forces would intensify patrols to prevent the movement of armed elements across the border that was reopened on Sunday. Sudan's military ruler, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed met earlier this month in the Kenyan capital amid the crisis. The Galabat border crossing was closed on 27th of June after Sudan accused Ethiopia of executing 7 soldiers. And South Africa's first black president and a world leader for peace, Nelson Mandela's legacy continues to be celebrated worldwide, with July 18 commemorated as Nelson Mandela Day every year. Now, to recognize Mandela's contribution to peace and culture, the United Nations General Assembly in 2009 marked his birth anniversary as a day of international recognition, affectionately called Madiba. Mandela was among the greatest heroes of history. Born in 1918, of course, celebrating the life and times of the country's first black president, Nelson Mandela, he is 5-time Grammy Award-winning music group Ladysmith Black Mambazo, performing a concert in Johannesburg. The show is conveying a message of peace and love. It was a rare moment for local fans to interact with the group, who spend most of their time touring the globe.
Interrupted by power cuts that have become a daily feature of life in South Africa, 5-time Grammy-winning Ladysmith Black Mambazo sang their warm-hearted choral harmonies in honor of peace icon Nelson Mandela on Sunday. The concert in Johannesburg Main Theatre, a day before United Nations declared Mandela Day his birthday, celebrated the life of the man who steered South Africa from the manacles of apartheid to multiracial democracy while narrowly avoiding a civil war.
It feels very great to perform for our hero, Dr. Madiba, because we've had a very great relationship with him since 1993, when we were invited to come and perform on his birthday. We had a very great time. He inspired us by telling us that the music of Ladysmith Black Mambazo had been his inspiration when he was still in prison.
The concert comes more than 2 years after death from illness of founder Joseph Shabalala, whose lilting choir jazzed up traditional Zulu music with a ragtime feel and exported it to the world, especially after a breakthrough collaboration with Paul Simon on the 1986 album Graceland. Founded in the 1960s, the band's name derives from the small farming town they're from, the black oxen, which were most prized among pastoral Zulus, and Mambazo, the Zulu word for axe. A generator rumbled on, and the group resumed on stage to a loud applause, followed by singing and dancing.
Happy Nelson Mandela Day. And the United Nations mission in Mali says Egypt will be withdrawing its troops from the West African country by mid-August, citing deadly attacks against its peacekeepers. Briefing journalists in New York, UN Deputy Spokesperson Farhan Haq noted that 7 Egyptian soldiers have been killed since the beginning of the year.
The permanent mission of Egypt has notified the UN that it will temporarily suspend its activities in support of the peacekeeping mission from starting August 15th. The decision is related to concern about the increase in attacks on Egyptian peacekeepers who escort convoys supplying bases in central and northern Mali. As you know, 7 Egyptian soldiers have been killed since the beginning of the year. The safety and security of peacekeepers is a top priority and essential to ensuring that we can carry out our mandated work to protect civilians and build peace in Mali and all other peacekeeping missions. We respect and deeply appreciate the service and significant sacrifice by Egypt and other countries contributing uniformed personnel to our missions, which operate in extremely difficult and often dangerous conditions. The UN is working closely with Egypt to address this issue. For example, on the issue of the suspension of rotations, the UN mission, MINUSMA, is continuing all efforts to meet with the Malian authorities and to address this issue without delay. We're doing our utmost to find ways to ensure the safety and security of the peacekeeping contingents themselves. But there's no getting around the fact that it is a dangerous task. It's been a very fraught situation on the ground, as we've told you repeatedly. But we'll see also what the results of the discussions with the Egyptians are before we consider what the next steps would be.
Offhand, the numbers?
Finally on the programme, it's back to the soaring temperatures in parts of the UK. Did you know that penguins at the London Aquarium were today keeping as cool as they could? All thanks to frozen fish treats in ice-filled buckets. A colony of gentoo penguins, which hail from Antarctica, slid around on a layer of ice in their sealed enclosure. Staff fed them on small fish from containers of ice. The colony is coming to the end of the annual mating season, which usually runs from March to July. Another resident of the aquarium, Shakira the octopus, helped herself to a meal of squid from a yellow bucket. Britain was on course for its hottest day on record Monday today, with temperatures forecast to hit 40 degrees Celsius for the first time. Well, that's it on The World Today in 60 minutes. Thank you for watching. I'm Melissa Ntumwaka. You can catch this episode and more episodes of the program on our YouTube channel. Bye for now.